taking that big step towards performing live. It's a huge milestone in a guitar player's journey. Join me and my guest, Evan Wilson, as we discuss making that big step and some ways that you can prepare yourself. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, friends, to episode 172 of the Play Guitar Podcast. I'm Lee. This is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. If you're new here, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast and check out the description for all of the links from the show. And this episode is brought to you by Play Guitar Academy, where you learn the right skills at the right time in the right order to put guitar frustration in your past. Okay, everybody, we're talking about playing out today. And couldn't think of a better person to join me with this. This is fresh for him right now. We've got some new things going on. Evan has been a student of mine since, goodness, I'm looking up, December of 2019. So it's been a little bit of time there. And this is something, usually with these, I do a Q&A. And I thought, you know what? Would be better served really helping people with something that's fresh that's going on with Evan right now. And that is moving from practicing all the time to playing out. So what we're going to do is we're going to meet Evan for a little bit, talk a little bit about him and what's going on. And then we'll talk about how we could help everyone move from the practice room to the stage. Hi, Evan. How are you doing today?
Hi, Lee. Hi, everybody out there. How y'all doing?
We got a bunch of folks in here all saying hi to everyone, saying hi to Evan here. And what I'd like to start with you is this is kind of round 2 for you, if I'm not mistaken. Could you tell us a little bit about the first time you started to go and be in bands and playing out, and then how we've progressed from there to where we are right now?
Yeah, it was 25 years ago when I was in high school, and I did my first go round with the guitar. A couple of friends of mine were in a band, and they said, "Hey, we need a guitar player. We heard you play guitar," and I joined up, and they took it very seriously. This was not just a bunch of guys. Well, wait, it absolutely was just a bunch of guys goofing off to a large degree in the living room or in the garage or what it was. But they had aspirations of goofing off on stage and recording their material and going on tour. And we, out of those 3 goals, we made 2 out of 3. We played a lot around town. We recorded several records that we sold at our shows and whatnot, and never made it on tour. But, for a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-olds, that's not too bad.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Good time.
So basically you got the call. They needed a guitar player.
Yeah, basically they needed a guitar player. They had a guitar player, but in his words and their words, he was not any good.
Okay.
And so he actually came to me and said, I'm in a band and they're looking for somebody. If you would like to take my place, I think you'd be better suited than I am. And so that's kind of how that worked out.
How was the beginning of that? Going into something that's already been established, how did that work for you?
Well, it wasn't really as well established as it might seem because they were right at the ground floor of what they were starting with. So they were trying to get something together. They had enlisted this other guy. He had taken no lessons, neither had I, but he really didn't know enough to play out. He didn't know enough to, he didn't know his bar chords. He didn't know all of his open position chords. He didn't really have enough to contribute. And that's what they were looking for. So I really started when they were starting to put the whole thing together.
Okay. That's okay. So, and you're talking about bar chords, and those things that you need to play a night of music. What was the thing that for you was shocking? What was the thing that was so different from just being at home practicing?
Well, no matter how, and this struck me, and it still strikes me today, honestly, is that, and today it's much different what I'm doing, but with this band, we would spend our time rehearsing. We performed all original material. So we'd spend a lot of time writing our music. Um, but when it comes to playing live, it is a completely different situation for a lot of reasons. It's not just a matter that, oh, you're nervous because there's people there. It's also a matter that if you get the crowd into it, that excitement changes the dynamic of how you're playing on stage. There's a lot to be said, and I think you've mentioned this on the podcast for both in this situation where I had to rehearse with people who were frankly, the band was led by a guy who's still a good friend of mine, but who was a musician for many years leading up to that point. And so he had the skills and the ability to write songs, write melodies, and to come up with material for us to play. And we leaned on that a whole lot. But coming to a situation where you have people that have a vision and then somebody who really has the reins of what's going on, you have a choice. I mean, you really need to recognize what it is that you bring to the table. And at that point, all I could bring to the table was function as a guitar player. And you try to rise to that occasion. And that's the other surprising thing, is how often you can rise to the occasion in what would otherwise be a very stressful situation.
Right. To put it, it puts you in a place where you're doing things that you're not sure you're going to be able to do, but you have extreme focus.
That's right.
Right. You're in it. You're there, and all of a sudden, you're checking boxes off. Oh, okay. Now I'm doing this. Right. Yeah. So now I'm doing this. Right. Okay. So. Go ahead.
If any of our football or fans, anybody here is a football fan, they know that they always talk about with the rookie when he's starting to see the game slow down.
Right.
And that's exactly what seems to happen. You have that focus that allows you to pay attention to what you're doing, think through what you're doing, but not lose your place in the song. It really does feel like time slows down enough to allow you to make decisions in between beats.
Right. So now, so you're in that band for a while, and at some point that was over, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And we had an extended period of time. This is a super common thing with podcast listeners and students. It is giving it a go in your teens or your early 20s, and then having an extended period of time either away from the guitar entirely or away from playing out live. Right. And so then let's go to that point right there. So now you're starting to pick the guitar back up again after a while.
Yeah, after a long time. After it was somewhere better than 20 years before, since I'd really seriously played the guitar, and was trying to make a real commitment to it. I really wanted to. When I was a teenager, I was very stubborn about the idea of taking lessons. Mm-hmm. I had this very, I'm going to go it alone attitude. I'm going to figure this stuff out, which was not the best plan, if I'm being honest with myself, and really hindered my ability to progress at the time. So, I decided that's out the window. I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to find some sort of path, some sort of method that I can follow. And I did try a few of the free online lessons for a while.
Okay, so that brings us up to about 2019 when we've been having fun, and we've been learning. You're a big Pink Floyd fan. That's right. So that was a big part of the style that we were working on, and but also filling in the foundation, filling in all of the gaps
Yeah.
as we were going along, and we have been, you know, knocking down some big goals, you know, as we were going along. So some really good stuff. And then something happened. What happened?
It was kind of out of the, well, I guess I shouldn't say it was out of the blue, but a friend of mine, the same friend that was, who had the reins of the band back in high school, might as well just say Earl, my friend Earl,
Hmm.
he gave me a call and said, look, a friend of mine is putting on this jam down by the river doing traditional jazz. It's just this informal thing. Why don't you come out, see what you think, give it a shot? And I'm like, all right, I'll bring the acoustic down by the river and see if I can hang. And it kind of changed a whole lot of things for me, Lee. It really changed a whole lot of things for me. Um, I still listen to Pink Floyd, but I haven't tried to play it in quite a long time. That's for
Hmm.
sure. Um, Getting out there and playing with this jam, because it was, you know, it was this informal thing. But for those who don't know, I live in New Orleans, and you can't put together a little band on the river in New Orleans and not have some people stop
Right.
and not have an audience form. And you know, the first week there might have been a dozen people out there, and we continue to do it week to week. And then there's days there's 50, 75 people out there. I don't know. It gets to be a pretty good crowd out there. And what was originally an informal jam, in my mind, let me just get together with some other musicians and see what it does for my chops, has turned into a more of a playing out situation.
So the point that we want to kind of stress here is that you are basically a rock player.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
And that's basically, you know, in different types of rock, but basically a rock player. And where you jumped into a traditional jazz, a New Orleans jazz setting, which is, you know, that's the fun stuff. You know what I mean? So we had not been preparing for that
Not at
exactly.
all. No.
Right. So you had answered the call and got out there and put yourself into a situation that you were unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about that the first time you guys played. Maybe not a rehearsal, but the first time you played in front of, you know, out there on the river playing.
Yeah. The first thing about it is that I was lucky. My friend Earl, he says, "Look, if you're going to come out and do this, there's an app you can get, and it's a real book app, and I'll give you a couple of playlists, and it's more than likely that the songs we're going to play are going to come from that playlist." So, whereas I was completely unprepared, now Earl had given me a very, very small bit of preparation. It's like having an open book test on material you've never seen before.
Right.
It's like you have the tools here to get the answers, but you're still just about as blind as you can possibly be. And it's still the case. I don't know a lot of these songs that we play. A lot of times we get out there, it's the first time I've ever heard the song in question.
Right.
So the first time I'm out there, I have the real book set up. And what was fortunate was, and this is almost funny, but the one of the trumpet players said, "Hey, why don't we do something a little easy for the rhythm section?" Now, you mentioned I come from rock. I was a rock guitar player, right? And it took me a second to realize all of a sudden I'm the rhythm section. You know, rock
Right.
guitar players, we want to be the lead. We don't want to be the
No.
rhythm section. But no, he was talking about us, and we're the rhythm section. We picked a couple of relatively easy blues songs to start with, just to kind of get us a feel, to get the band kind of grooving together, you know.
Right. How did that go? How the easy jazz blues song?
never
Jazz
easy
blues is
to
different than
be.
a 12
Yeah,
bar blues. Right.
jazz blues is different. It's not a simple 1-4-5. It's
Right.
not the same turnaround. And so I'm trying to follow the changes as best I can. Fortunately, I was not the only guitar player, and I was unplugged. It was an acoustic session for me. I brought my
Right.
acoustic guitar out there, so it was really easy to kind of blend in to what was going on, fade into the mix, as it were.
Right.
Um, but I'll tell you, even for the experienced players that were there, this was the first time the whole group of them had been together. And man, it was
Yeah, that's
sloppy
good.
anyhow.
Yeah.
It was sloppy. Everybody was sloppy.
Nobody was getting on anybody for not hitting everything, hitting the
No, and
changes. Right.
even a couple of months later, it's not that kind of scene, fortunately. They're all out there for a good time.
But even though you went out there, you were doing your best, but you weren't exactly prepared for it, right? But you took the jump.
Yeah.
You went out there and did it. Was it miserable? Was it the end of the world?
No, it wasn't. And what's probably worth mentioning is that, you mentioned the focus you get in this live situation. You're not sitting there thinking, I'm really bad at this than I'm trying to do. You're sitting there like, okay, I've got to switch from this chord to this chord. I've got to keep my rhythm straight. I've got to follow this guy here. You don't have time to worry about whether or not you're keeping up. You only have time to try and keep up.
Well, let me tell you something. It's been fun. It's been fun. And Evan's been sharing some video clips about this process that's been going on. I've been wanting to share this with all of you. This is a great example of what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the podcast today. And that is not being afraid to take the leap. Because you may find something that's difficult, but you may find something that really changes your opinion of what you can accomplish. You might fail a few times at first, but when you get in the right situation with the right group of people, it can ignite your interest in guitar again. I know a lot of us at home, especially now, one, it's springtime, and springtime is when everybody's starting to think about what we're going to do. Two, supposedly things are supposed to be getting better. I've noticed I'm in the Orlando area, and there's a lot of bands that are playing. They found ways of doing outdoor amphitheaters and those things. So people are starting to play a little bit more. So the people who are practicing at home, who've had that in the back of their mind, I would really like to start playing out again, or even just getting a few people together to play. That's going through a lot of people's minds right now. So I thought this was an appropriate topic for this week. And what we're going to do is we've got two situations. We're going to talk about making the step, taking that initial, you get offered a situation where you can go play, or you just decide I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to try and seek out some people to start playing with. Three things that you can do to really help you make that step to get out there and start playing again. And then after that, we're going to be talking about how can you prepare yourself for this. So if you're not quite ready right now to start playing out, but it's something that you're going to be doing, you've made that decision, what can you do right now to prepare yourself? So let's go ahead. Let's start here. The first thing is, the most important thing when you're making that first step is to change your thinking. And the first part of that is making sure that you know that you can do this. We want to take away any of that negative feeling that, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'll be terrible, or all this kind of. You might be terrible, but you know what? That's the first step towards being awesome.
That's right.
That's not a bad thing. It's the first step, and it's okay. That brings me to number two is you're never going to be ready to make that big step. You're never going to be so ready that you're like, okay, well, here it is. It's time. It's you're always going to have that little pit in your stomach when you're like, I don't know about this. How's this going to go? There are some things with playing out you just can't prepare for anyway. There's some of the things that Evan was talking about. And I'm gonna go through some of them right now. It's kind of funny. Let me see here. I have, well, we'll get to that in the next section. But you can't wait till you're mentally ready for it. It's time. It's time for you to start. Call up that person. Start making plans. Even make set lists. One of the things I love to do with my students is to get them to start thinking like we're playing out. When I was taught in Georgia for years, for a long time, and one of the things I'm proud about with that is a ton of the students that I've taught in Georgia are out there in clubs. Were out there when people were going out to clubs. We're playing on a night in Central Georgia. I could go out and see a whole bunch of friendly faces who are out there playing. So we want to get you to start playing. You don't need to wait till you're ready. We'll start the process now. But the first thing you need to realize is that not everyone, when you get out to start playing, is going to like you. And that's okay. Think about you when you go out to see a band, or say it's a night with 3 bands right there. Most likely, one of those bands you may not like. Does that mean that they shouldn't be up there playing? Not at all. Okay. Everyone has different tastes. It's okay if not everyone likes you. Just get over that right now. I want to talk about the podcast right now. So this is a good, it has a good story that goes along with this. I'm a pretty easygoing person. I'm not a very negative person. I don't like stress. I don't like any of those kind of things. I like being happy. I don't like a lot of negativity in my life. But I'm a driven person. I have certain things that I want to do. I want to play guitar. I want to do this podcast. I want to help people. I feel driven to do those things. And that part of my personality that doesn't want to have conflict or stress or wants people to like me, it's not fun when people don't like you. Those 2 things don't mix really well. And so, especially when I first started playing guitar, you have that idea, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to play and everybody's going to like me. It's going to be great. And the first time you get up there, you play and the first song ends, boom, and nothing, not even those kind of things. So you learn that this is a process. Getting good and being able to play for an audience and having people and having more than less people enjoying your performance is something that you have to work on over time, and it is something that can be learned. And I'm talking about the podcast. This show is for frustrated guitar players, okay, or people who have been frustrated or are working their way through it. People who find guitar easy, who it just clicks for them. They're not going to get really anything from this podcast. And I've had a few comments of those things that sometimes I know who I'm talking to. I know I'm talking to people who haven't been able to figure some of these things out, or have gotten stuck, gotten in a ditch. And sometimes we'll take a topic that I know is going to help those players, and I will spend extra time on it. I'll repeat things. Why? Because I know that repetition is going to help someone in that situation. I've had a couple comments where it's like, well, why are you repeating this over and over again? And this is terrible. This is the worst thing ever. Not many, but you get them. And at that point, you get a little deflated. You need to catch yourself. When you start to feel those things, when you're playing out for somebody and somebody doesn't like you, or it doesn't go the way you want to, it's just a step. Are you going to stop because of that? hopefully the answer is no. For me, it's no. I know that this podcast helps a lot of people. And I know that if I stop because one person doesn't like the way I'm doing things, I will be shortchanging some people who are getting a lot out of it there. So it's the same thing with playing out. There are people who want to hear you play, and there are people out there who would love the way you play, no matter what stage of a guitar player that you are at. I will never forget this. My wife and I were living in Nashville, and we used to go to songwriters nights. And songwriters nights, you go out and it's like 4 or 5 people, and they're all sitting there with acoustic guitars, just in kind of a circle. Everybody's really quiet, and they're playing these songs. And, it's not the best version of the song you've ever heard. And then come to find out, that's the person who wrote the song, and they get together and they jam and they demonstrate songs. And there was one night, and I think it was a Japanese songwriter. I'm not sure. And I will never forget this. I don't know the guy's name. And he could barely play. He wasn't playing guitar very well. It was banging on it and screaming, basically. And at the end of the song, he said that was called "Why is the Sky Blue? Why is the Sky Blue? I do not know." And he had so much passion for that song, and had so much determination for it. I will never forget that performance. He didn't have the skills, but it was fantastic. I'll never forget it. It was musical. It was funny, and I think it was intending to be funny too. But there was an audience. I was his audience for that night. It was something that you wouldn't traditionally think was ready for performance. But you got to get over that who cares if someone doesn't like you? You're on a journey. You're on a path. You're on a goal. You have a desire to get out there and play guitar, a desire to get out there and perform. And there are going to be people who do not like you. And, don't shortchange those other people. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is how to prepare yourself for getting ready to play. We have a lot of people who are in that position. I would really like to play out. I would really like to get together with some people. Evan, what would you say? What would be, if you had a new situation coming up, which you knew about ahead of time, how would you, that's right. What would you start to do? Knowing what you know now, what would you start to do to prepare yourself to play out?
If I knew, let's say with 2 weeks notice, that I was getting into the situation I'm getting into, the first thing I would try and do is get my hands on the repertoire. That's what I want. I want to be able to run through the actual songs that I'm going to be playing. That's not always possible in my circumstances, but if you're able to play with a band, if you're playing, just regular shows, you might be able to get a set list that you can learn all the songs from. That would be number one.
Okay, number one.
Number two, I'd say make sure you've got your chords down. Make sure
your
you
basic
have
skills
changes down. Not just I can play my F chord, but can you change from that F chord to an A minor chord? Can you change from that F to an A minor, and then from a B to a G? How quickly can you make those changes cleanly? Like you say, the basic skills, those are the ones that are going to trip you up. You need to be really, really up on your basic skills.
Yeah, one of the things that here's one of the things that I have 3 things I was going to add to this too. So we have the basic skills, getting being prepared, having your stuff together beforehand. One of the things I was going to talk about is dealing with endurance. And that's a big difference from at home practicing your guitar and at home, playing songs, to going out there and standing up for however many hours that you have to play, and playing the whole song through. One of the things that, we do as people who are practicing at home is, if you're learning a song, well, I already played that part. I don't have to play I'll play the verse and I'll play the chorus. There you go. I'm playing the song. When you have to play the entire song where you're repeating something as simple as going from a D chord to a G chord, and all of a sudden you realize that you have these serious dents in your finger where that D chord is, and it starts to get a little painful. You're doing more than you would at home. You're going to be playing the same things over and over and over again, playing the entire songs. A song has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You're going to be standing and playing for hours. And another thing with endurance, that this is for people who are lead guitar players or doing some sort of improvisation, is that when you have adrenaline, dealing with adrenaline is a big difference. You don't have that adrenaline surge when you're just at home practicing. And that's not something that you can really prepare for. When you get there and you have this adrenaline surge and it's your time to play a solo, generally you're going to use up all your good ideas in that song or the first few songs. And then after that point, you've got a whole night of music that you have to play. So getting some ideas about what you're going to, even if it's just an outline, if you're playing the solo for a certain song, certain things that you'll do in it each time. That way you don't have to come up with ideas later on after you've used all of your good ideas. So dealing with endurance is one of those things. Another thing that's different about playing out that you can prepare yourself for is distraction. At home, you're practicing and you may hear someone in the other room, or you may hear, someone outside honking the horn, or the doorbell rings, and those kind of distractions. But nothing like the distractions that you're going to deal with when you're performing live. You're not going to have a lot of time to think about things. So that time when you're practicing where you can stop and go back and work on something, that's gone. You're on a schedule. There are things that have to happen there. So you don't have a lot of time to think. You're going to forget things. You're going to forget what chord you're playing. You're going to forget what key you're in. These are things that happen on a song-to-song basis. They happen. So you're going to have to learn how to get back on the train. That's a new skill. And that's not a skill that you can learn at home. It's going to happen. You have to learn to, okay, I'm lost. How do I jump back in? And that's one of the things that you could prepare yourself for, that these are things that are going to happen. When they do happen, not to get discouraged about it. It's just part of the process. You're also going to make some mistakes. Okay, the classic one is the Duane Allman in the Live from the Fillmore East, where he makes a mistake, and then the next time through at that same part of the song, he does it again to make it sound like he meant to do it. There's certain ways of, when you do make a mistake, to cover it up, but you're going to make mistakes. And one of the problems with making mistakes is it can derail you. You can take you right out of the zone. And you're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to have to climb back on the train, figure out, how am I going to get back from this mistake that I've just made? This is the game. But you can still deal with these things. It's still fun, even though you're dealing with these things. And when they happen, at some point, when you get so used to playing out and so comfortable with it, when they happen, it's kind of fun. You're just like, okay, well, how am I going to deal with this one now? How am I going to get back from there? So, and the last thing, well, how about some examples of that at this jam? What are the distractions that you're noticing as you're playing? Can you
first
hear
one
me,
that
Evan?
comes to mind
Okay.
is we're not on a stage. We're out at the wharf. Yeah, we're not on a stage. We're out on a wharf. We're on even level with the audience, which is generally fine. You know, the audience knows where they stay and they let the band do their thing. But small children don't quite understand those things, and a guitar player's legs is a great place for little children to run around when they're playing tag or whatever it is. So I
And
spent a
guitar
couple of
pedals
songs
as
with
well.
a few children. Yeah, just running around my legs. So you can't prepare for that. And then there's the other side of it. You mentioned you've got to be ready to jump back into the song, but at the jam, sometimes the song will start to fall apart and it needs somebody, just one person who's like, I know where we are and I'm going to keep
Right.
driving this thing. And surprisingly, I've done that more than once where the song was going off. I'm like, but no, we're right here. We're about to turn around and start the verse again. You just kind of have to, you have to think on your feet. You've got to be willing to, you've got to be aware of your environment. You know, the song sounds like it's falling apart, but is it ending? Do you really want to be the guy who's trying to start it over when the song is about to end? No, you don't. You've got to pay attention to what's going on, take cues from the rest of the band, and try your best to do a part to keep the thing moving.
I think I think this all boils down to a change in thinking to prepare yourself to play out. And it's changing from thinking inward to thinking outward. It's a whole different way of going. When you're practicing at home, you're working on your guitar skills and you're focusing on what you're doing. When you get out there and start playing, you'll see some folks who don't make that transition really well. And these are the ones who have their head down the whole time. They're not paying attention to what anyone else is playing. They're not paying attention to the audience. They're shutting everyone out and they're just staring at their guitar and trying to have that same experience. When you're fighting that, it's basically fighting these distractions. You're just walling yourself out. I see it every time. In fact, almost in every band, there's one member who does that. Who just walls himself off and just plays like they're at home practicing. But you're missing a big part of the fun. Embracing all the things that a live performance does. That funny things happen. The interplay with other musicians is really important. And if you're not paying attention to what other people are playing, you're not going to get new ideas to take what you're playing up a notch. And that's when the really fun things happen. So to me, making sure that you realize that this is going to be an outward thing. We're thinking about, well, how my amplifier, if you're using an amp, how is that going to compete? How's it going to project outward? Not just pointing at you. You're playing for people and there's a communication between the audience and yourself. And that's a little scary too. I remember playing bars a lot that first set when, before everybody had started drinking. It can be rough. You know what I mean? It can be rough. It's a little uncomfortable at first, but then the game of it isn't to be perfect in every single thing you do. It's to take people from one point in time to another point in time. And that's where the fun is. And it's very different from playing, from practicing at home. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and end the audio podcast right now. But Evan and I are going to go into the chat in a few minutes to take any questions that you guys have, or just say hi, hang out for a little while. So I'm going to go ahead right now and end the audio podcast. So thank you for hanging out with me, Evan. I sure appreciate it. Thanks for your insight on playing out. And you have anything to say for any of the people who are nervous about playing out?
There's nothing you can do to not be nervous about it other than getting out and doing it. And I've done this more than once. I've done this at open mic nights when I was a kid. I've done this at shows when I was a teenager. I've done this, the talent shows. I'm doing it now, getting up in front of musicians and jamming. And every single time I've done it, the reward I have taken away from even that first experience has made it worth it. No matter how frightened or nerve-wracked I was before I started, at the end of every one of those experiences, I have said, this was worth it. I need to do this again.
All right. Thanks, Evan. I appreciate that. That was great. That was great. Okay, well, we're going to call it. Thanks, everybody. That's a wrap. You go ahead and say it, Evan.
All right. That's a wrap.
Thanks for joining us today for the Play Guitar Podcast. Make sure to hit the button below to subscribe to the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the notification bell so you can get all of my content as soon as it comes out. Are you ready to fill in all the cracks and use my roadmap to get your playing moving forward again? If so, I'm ready to help. Head on over to playguitaracademy.com. Thanks again, and we will see you on the next episode. And here we are, back in YouTube land. That was awesome, Evan. Thank you, man. Thanks for hanging out. We got a whole bunch of folks here. Let's see who we've got. Coke's here. Kevin is here. Kevin says we get to hear from the famous Evan Wilson today. Rock on, man. We got some David's here. Let's see here. David says Evan will be in the house today. That's right. Jim. Hey, Jim. How are you doing? Dean is here. Hi, Dean. How are you doing today? And let's see here. Kevin says, I like the PGA promo. Thanks. Yeah, I threw a little bit in the beginning and at the end. Let's see here. Les. Hey, Les. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. We're doing good. We're doing good. Matthew's here. Hey, Matthew. Great to see you. And Matt Sullivan's here. Hey, Matt. Great to see you too. Les says, working towards my goal to play my first ever open mic this year. This is why did this podcast today. People in this situation. Learning, practicing the songs until I feel ready to play in front of people. But Lee's right, I'll never feel ready enough. Yeah, there's a line there that's hard to put your finger, am I competent enough to get up there and play? Do I have the skills ready? But at the same time, if I'm not trying to polish it way too much and put it off, that's the line right there. But let's keep us in the loop about that. Do you know what the open mic is? Do you have a specific one that's going on right now, or are you just have that goal? And are you going to be singing the songs yourself, or are you just going to be playing guitar along with someone else? Cook says, I'm ready to suck is what got me up for an open mic. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Okay. So Matthew says, about how long did you guys play before you played out? I started playing when I was 12, and I was in bands at 15. So I played for about 3 years before I played in bands. Now I did a little playing out before that. But that was for me. So it took me about 3 years before it did. How about you, Evan? How about with your first band? How long had you been playing before you guys got together? Oh, I think we've lost Evan. Okay, well, I think he'll be back in a minute or two. Let's see here. Coke says, I played about 10 months before playing on a stage. Matthew says, my brother has played forever. I'd like to play with him someday. I'm ready to suck, but I'm not sure how ready he is for me to. You know what, though? That's a good, that's a good resource to have, to sit him down and say, look, this is my goal. I'd like to be able to hang, for us to be able to play together. What are the things that I need to do? What would throw you off? Run stuff by him if you can. Not everybody has all of those, is able to have that kind of conversation. But I would guess with your brother, you'd like to. That would be a good a really good resource to have and a good way to have someone who has your back in that. I've been in a lot of situations where, didn't have your back in those. Oh, here he is. Evan's back. Hey, there you go. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can y'all hear me?
Oh yeah, you're back now. That's good. The question was, where was it here? About how long did you guys play before you played out? So in your first band, Evan, how long was it between when you started playing guitar and when you were playing in that when you played out?
Between when I started playing guitar and when I started with that band, or between when I started with that band and when we started playing out?
No, from when you picked up the guitar and then started playing.
That would have been 1994. I'm going to date myself there. So I had probably only been playing for maybe about a year and a half.
Okay.
When I picked up and started playing out for the first time.
That's good. That's good. I think Coke said his was like 10 months, something like that. I was 12 when I started playing. So from 12 to 15, there's not a whole lot of opportunity. So when I was 15, that's when I first started playing. Let's see here. And Matthew was talking about how his brothers played forever and he would like to play with them someday. So this was fun. This is one of my favorite type of shows, to get real world situations that I know that people are like. I can name 5 students right now who are in this same situation, and then putting it out there and just seeing how many people something like this would help. And I'm glad that you were able to share your story with us today. That was really cool. Thank you, Evan. I appreciate that. David says, I don't know if I will ever play out, but Lee lives close enough to me that I could be his roadie when he plays out. Yeah, I do. I sure do. That's right. I've got a timeline. So getting the academy together. It's been open for a month. I've got a lot of things that I'm going to be doing to it. I had to get my taxes out of the way. That took a week. So I haven't been able to get anything done. But starting tomorrow, I'm going to be getting that going on. And when I'm happy with how the academy is going, and a lot of you know a lot of the things that I'm going to be adding to it. After that is when I'm going to start looking for some folks to play with around here in Orlando, which would be fun to have a play. It's a good place. A lot of people come here a lot, so I'd like to have something where people will come to town, they can go and hang out and maybe get up and play a song, those kind of things. So it's on the way. It's on the way. And David, I don't you don't need to be a roadie. You can get up and jam some, I think. Let's see here. Coke says, I think I could probably handle several types of gigs right now. I just got to start looking. And Matthew says, when is the Wisconsin chapter of PGA open up? We've got some Wisconsin. Let's see here. Kevin's here. Who are the other Wisconsins? We've got a couple Wisconsin folks up there. Speaking of that, I hope things are starting to warm up for you. I think Coke said it. I think Kevin said that it was warming up a little bit again. Les says, I'm going to attempt playing and singing the songs. Good. Awesome. That's always something I try to push, which will be very interesting since I can't sing at all. Well, in for a penny, in for a pound. I was, I would sing backup in a lot of bands for years. And at some point, I got really fed up. in a situation I was in, and I just decided I'm going to do it, and I booked a gig at the Back Porch in Macon, which was a small club. And I figured, hey, what's the worst that could happen, right? They don't ask me back. And I just went out there and I learned a night of music. And was I fantastic? No. Did I make it through the night? Yes. And nobody left. You know what I mean? And that was my first step. Same thing with this. Even though I had been playing guitar for years, I was never a lead singer. And I just did. At one point, I just said, "Man, I'm just not doing this anymore. I'm going to try it out." And it worked. It worked, and it's interesting. It's adding another dynamic on top of this whole pushing yourself to do things that are uncomfortable. So Les, I think that's a great goal to have. And if there's any way I can help you with that, let me know. Let me know. How's your singing, Evan? Do you do any singing? Did you sing with your old band as well? Did you do any backups or anything like that?
I mean, a little bit of screaming backup on some heavier songs. Not really. Now, I did sing on all 4 of those songs I recorded last summer, so I guess I would say my singing is serviceable under the right conditions.
Okay. All right. Right conditions. That's right. That's everybody, though.
Under the right conditions, yeah.
Yeah, you look at famous singers, and they know their range. They know what they can do. You don't hear them singing, taking chances. And so it seems to the audience like they could sing anything because everything that they sing sounds good. But those singers know there are certain notes that they struggle with, and there are certain keys or certain ranges of their voice that are less pleasing than others, and they avoid those things. So that's everybody, and it takes a while to know that. It takes the key thing with singing too is interesting. You get some people say, well, I can't sing in the key of E. Well, yeah, you can. The key of E goes on forever. It goes as high as you can go and goes as low as you can go. There is a range in the key of E that you can sing. Maybe the song that you picked in the key of E puts you up too high, for that song. So getting used to what your voice sounds like and where you're comfortable, and being able to make sure that the song that you're picking in that key is not pushing you into an uncomfortable place. Is interesting too. David says Evan throws some singing on the song he throws up on Facebook. Sounded good. Hey, there you go. You got a fan. Awesome, man. Okay, guys. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. We're going to go ahead and call it. I'll be getting in touch with a bunch of folks in the academy this week. We've got a lot of new stuff coming. I've got taxes behind me. Already started to put chord sheets up on different levels. I did some of that last night. I'm going to finish out we got together a few weeks ago, and I have ran some ideas by folks. I'm going to be finishing those out. And then I've got a whole bunch of new stuff coming for that. So for those in the academy, I'll be in touch with you later on in the week. And thanks again, Evan, for hanging out with us, man, and sharing. That was wonderful.
Thanks, Joel. Always a good time on the podcast, on the live stream. Always willing to do it.
It was awesome. Okay. Well, we're going to say bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
We'll see you soon.